Hey, what's up? This is Johnny, and I'm finally going to do another podcast. I always do the same thing. I always wait for the perfect opportunity to create a video podcast. And by perfect, I mean, I always want to have, or at least I think I need to have the best studio, the best camera, the best microphone, and, topics are like, what am I going to talk about? And what ends up happening is I don't even create one because I'm so focused on it being professional that I just don't do it. So I said, you know what? Screw it. You got to start somewhere. One of the things that I find easy is when I do interviews because I have another person that I go back and forth with. Coming things on top of my head. I don't know how long it can last with that, but we'll see today. And speaking of interviews, it was a trip because this week I did one on Thursday with a good friend of mine. His name is Robert. And we talked about program. And we talked about, our journey. And when I went back to listen to edit, it was like skipping and yeah, just skipping, fast forwarding. It was weird. I don't know what the problem was. I didn't. I used the same app, I believe, from before. Maybe I didn't. That's what I had to check. And I ran a test, and it sounded good this time. But when I was over there, I don't know, something went wrong. I don't know what it was. So I'm gonna have to do a retake on his interview. It was actually good. The thing about it is, are we gonna get that same magic that I got on this first interview? I thought it was actually good. I just didn't like the recording. So, how's everyone doing? How's sobriety in your life? How are you treating sobriety? Because I know if you let it, sobriety will treat you right. Uh, you know, if you let God, everything will be straight. And not that I'm saying that if you let God, you're going to win $1 million. Or if you let God, she's going to come back or he's going to come back. I just know that if you let God, a lot of these worries will slip away, and then they come back and then they slip away and then they come back and then they slip away. And that's a funny thing about sobriety. So this morning we were talking, I was facilitating a book study in Montebello. And we were talking, we were doing Bill's story. And a lot of times when we come in here, at least when I came in here, I couldn't relate to Bill. He was white, a stockbroker. He was married. He lived in New York. And this was back in 1935. And the book was published in 1939. So, yeah, I couldn't relate to him at all. But the problem with that is that I don't need to relate to that part. What I need to relate and identify is how he handles situations in his life. How he still thought that he could control his drinking, even though it was like batshit crazy. And I don't see that when I get here. In fact, when I got here, there was a lot of stuff that I could not relate to. For example, a lot of people were talking about the war stories, and that's all I heard. Now, rather or not, I wasn't ready to hear the recovery part. I heard the war stories, and a lot of the war stories I could not relate to. So I think, right? A lot of people were talking about prison, doing time in prison, years of prison. I couldn't relate to that because I haven't done the prison thing yet, right? And that's what they teach us in the beginning, or that's what I was told. Hey, you never say never. It just yet hasn't happened. The other thing is divorce. I've never been divorced, but I've had some breakups. I never lost a home because I never owned a home. I was still living with my parents when I got here. That's a funny thing. Same thing with Bill. See, Bill was jobless and he had to live with Lois's parents. So him and Lois did not have a home. They could, you hear people say that they're couch surfing or they were homeless. So I myself did not have a house. I haven't lost my house yet. The other thing is, I'm not a stockbroker. But the funny thing about that, now I came in 2011, and the funny thing about that, in 2020, during COVID, I really got into the stocks. In fact, I started speculating on stocks. I just bought some stocks. Some of them were good, a lot of them weren't. Who would have thought that 9 years later I would get into stock? So, anyways, I couldn't relate to any of that. So I even started thinking, let me back up. I have been in these rooms twice because I've gotten 2 DUIs. The first one, not a big deal, not a big issue. It was only you signed 6 signatures and you're on your merry way. And I can't even believe, I can't even think about how much they were back then. But I'm sure it wasn't half of what it is or what it is today. I'm pretty sure it's very expensive. And I can't remember the year this happened. And the thing about that too is I was not ready at all. I just had bad luck. I got that DUI. They sent me to mandatory AA meetings. And what they had was a liquor store in front of the AA. So the liquor store was here and the AA was in the back. So of course I would drink before, and when someone picked me up, I drank after. So yes, I wasn't ready. So I wasn't ready to hear the message. I believe I was in my 20s. Then the second one came, and on the second one, I didn't attend the meetings, especially when I heard that you could forge the name because it's anonymous. They don't check. So that gave me a perfect solution why I shouldn't go to AA anymore. I did have to do the mandatory ones, but I didn't have to do the AA meeting. So I forged every single one. And I believe that one was 10 years later from my first one. So I didn't go to the meetings, but I had to go to the mandatory ones. And I went to the mandatory ones, and I did hear something pretty cool. Actually, I heard 2 things. One was everybody was talking about that they had a great time, and they ended up at the garage. That's when they thought that they had a problem. And I remember thinking, man, I'll never be in a garage. I will never end up in a garage, because at the time I was promoting bands. We did shows at the Coconut Teaser in Hollywood. And when I say we, I mean, I called them up, told them I have a band. We rented a bus and we go out there. And let me just say, it was a blast. Big blast. I mean, it was just fun. And at the time, I believe this might have been like 2001, 2, something like that, early 2000s. I said, like, I'll never end up in the garage. And sure enough, I did end up in the garage. And it wasn't even my garage. It was, at the time, it was a real good friend who just passed away. It was his garage. And we were partying and partying and partying. And, but it's always a yet. Like, well, and that's the thing is, like, I haven't done that yet. I haven't traveled the country geographical to see if I'm an alcoholic, or I haven't done any of that yet. So I always want to separate myself. We always want to separate myself from everything. I want to be unique. I want to be special. But the fact of the matter is, today, what I believe, by the way, my sobriety date is 2011, September 25th, 2011. And what I believe is, yes, everyone's journey was different. Consequences were different, but our journey was different. Our journey was pretty much different, but we all ended up here for the reason that we hit rock bottom, that we could no longer At least I could no longer keep living the way I was living, and I no longer wanted what I had. And what I had was a very fucking shitty attitude, a very negative attitude, a very dark attitude. It was just terrible. Very short with people, very quick with the tongue, as you know, like lashing back at people. You know, alcohol, I love the effect produced by alcohol, and there's a period right after that. And it's so true because what it made me feel was what I wasn't accepting, and that was me. It made me feel better, good looking. I can dance a lot better, and you know I can do all kinds of things that was better, which gave me a false sense of confidence. Liquid courage is what they called it, and so I just like the what it did for me. So, like I was saying, alcohol just gave me courage, false sense of courage. And so, what everybody was, let's get back to what I was talking about. And what we were talking about and what I was mentioning this morning is that let's not look at the difference. Let's look at the similarities. How many times Bill used alcohol as an escape? How many times he felt fear? Uh, a bunch of times, you know, self-pity, and how many times he went to alcohol until alcohol had him in its grips. And like I was saying, nobody was sharing about everybody was sharing about prison and all these other things that I could not relate to at the time when I got here in January 2011, until some older man, Bob Z, rest in peace, he started sharing about resentments and how we need, you know, how resentments is a number one offender. How we had to make everything that was wrong right. And when I heard him talk about resentment, that's what caught my eye, or that's what caught me. That's what cracked my head open. I mean, you know, it just popped, you know, it just opened it. And I'm thinking like, shit, how do you do that? How do you resent, or how do you make amends to the enemy? And that's the thing. It's funny because as time passed by, you know, I was always thinking like, oh, I have enemies, but I didn't have enemies. I just had a lot of people that didn't like my behavior, who didn't want to be part of my life because of my behavior, as a result of my behavior. And shit, I wouldn't want to be part of my life if because of my behavior also. You know, I didn't even like myself when I got here. And so I went up to him and he goes, how do you, I can't remember the book, but it talks about, I don't know if it's forgiveness or something about the resentment and our enemies. And I remember him telling me, you know, go to the 12 and 12 on Sunday at 8 p.m. You'll find your answers there. I guess in the long run, I did find the answer, but I did not find the answer at that very moment. And if you're one of us, gratification is a must. We have no patience for improvement. I want to feel good. I want to be fixed right now without any work. I want to understand everything. And unfortunately, that's not the way it goes in recovery. Not for me, anyways. I'm not one of those guys that can read the book one time and understand that, oh, okay, self-imposed crisis. Oh, okay, I know what that means. And I stop. And I'm living a great life right after that. I literally am the guy that makes mistakes, goes up for a breather, and then comes back down and makes mistakes until, just like alcohol, it my head hits the wall. You know, I come to an end. Either A, I can keep going to the bitter end, or I can ask or seek spiritual help. What's it going to be? And this time around, I came in for help. So yeah, man, if you're having trouble, the jails, the DUIs, the coughing up blood, all these things, that the divorces, the family doesn't want to be with you, that doesn't make you an alcoholic. And thank God that's not what makes you an alcoholic. Those are the consequences of alcoholism, of that internal spiritual malady. That's a consequence. Because in the book, I believe is in the We Agnostics, it says two things. One is, if you really want to stop and find you cannot, or if you start and if you start and you can't stop abruptly, meaning, I control drinking, there's a probable chance that you may be alcoholic. And guess what? I am both of them. Even if you're one, you need to look at that. Even if you want to say, "Oh yeah, I'm one, I'm not both," you might want to look at that. So yeah, that those are the things, those are consequences. So thank God we got into that whole emotional unmanageability part of alcoholism, and I'm glad that he brought that out. And that was the other thing too, is that whole unmanageability. I was working, I paid the bills, maybe not on time. Most of the time they were late. In fact, a lot of the times we're late. And that's fucking crazy, because if you think about it, I'm just gonna throw a number. I can't pay the $100, but I can pay the $150 because of the late fees. And those are just numbers I'm throwing. Whatever your credit card is or whatever your bill is different. But the thing is, instead of paying it on time and just paying and avoiding the late fees, guess what? I paid the bill and I paid the late fees. Makes no sense whatsoever. None. But that's what I did, and the unmanageability, man, that unmanageability was here actually way before I took that first drink. In fact, the unmanageability went away when I had my first real drink. Good guzzle, a good chug, and my body just went. I had no worries anymore. None whatsoever. I remember that. And did that feel good? And I wanted more of it, So the unmanageability was already there way before my alcoholism had me, just way before that. And then we come in here and I want to argue that my life is still unmanageable because I supposedly pay rent and pay bills and I have a job. But again, it's not that. It's my reaction to life. It's how I react to people, how I react to rejection, how I react to something I don't get, the fear of losing something I want, a fear of not understanding, because what is everyone going to think if I don't understand? So I got to be, fake and act like I do. And in the meantime, I'm falling behind. There's so much shit, and then that's the thing. There's so much more than the bottle, so much more. And this behavior isn't just in alcoholics. This behavior is in everything, any addict, rather using drugs, if you're shopping, drugs, sex, anything that you look outside to make the inside feel good, or anything that you look for in the outside, so you could ignore what's going on in here. That's the problem right there. That's the big problem, because we have the illness of more. More is better. More is better. You have one girlfriend, let me have a side one, because two is better than one. And if I can get three, man, I am a legend. You know, if I could make a shitload of money, live beyond my means, I'll be killing myself trying to make that money, you know? So that's the stuff that I found out when I got here. And I had no idea that that's the stuff that was killing me, my instincts. So, we were talking about that. And then everybody started participating in their own recovery, which is actually pretty cool. It's good to hear. When you get here, your mind is racing 1,000 miles, all kinds of shit, all the homeboys you grew up with, all the girls that rejected, and everything, just like everything in life is all running up here at a very fast, aggressive, just angry voice, just tearing me down inside here. I'm tearing myself down. And it's like, that's the fear right there too, the unmanageability. I can't control what I'm thinking, and then I start feeling what I'm thinking, and then becomes true, and then I start acting on it. Fucking crazy. But then you get introduced to the 12 steps. Then you get introduced to the 12 steps, not because when I got here I jumped in the 12 steps like ASAP. I remember in 90 days, the first sponsor I got, he looked like one of the homeboys. So I was like, hey, you want to, it wasn't even a cool way. I was so scared of asking him to sponsor me. It was like asking a girl out on a date without any alcohol. I had to have alcohol to do that. And I remember asking him, hey, would you sponsor me? He says, yes. And then after that, I said, he said, well, this is what you got to do. You got to meet me here at this time. He didn't have a car at the time, so he wanted me to pick him up. And we're going to go to these amount of meetings. And how desperate are you? And I said, whoa. I don't know about all that stuff, because my daughter's graduating. She's 18. She's seen me drunk my whole life. My whole life she saw me drunk. I'm not saying I was a nasty drunk my whole life, but let's just say I sacrificed my relationship with my daughter so I can have a good time and I can do what I wanted to do. Like, doesn't that sound like self-centered, selfish to the core? Because God forbid I wasn't there when something exciting happened. And it did. So anyway, so I remember telling them that, like, now she's graduating, so I got to be there. And I just signed up for softball. And no, you know what? I'm at work, and I'm giving him all kinds of reasons why I can't do this. And I remember he tells me, well, you know what? When you're ready, when you're done with everything and you're ready, give me a call. And I said, all right. 2 weeks later, I'm freaking in my head, crying my ass. Like, well, I wouldn't say crying my ass. See, I exaggerate. I was crying, but I'm not going to say I was crying my ass off. But I was crying. And I call him, and I'm just like, you know what? I do need help. I do need help. What is it you want me to do? And he said, let's go here. So that's when my journey started. Actually, my real journey did start within my 30 days of sobriety. Well, with my 30 days of just not drinking. I remember I was at home by myself, at my parents' house by myself. And I don't know what happened. I think I just got back from a meeting, and I don't know what happened. But all I know is that I started feeling fear 10 times. I started feeling remorse. I started feeling regret. I started feeling like I was doomed. So much that regret. I started feeling the regret, just everything, self-pity. And I felt this so hard that it dropped me to my knees. And, the thing is, I don't know about you guys, but I know when I first got here, my first 3 years, I was freaking angry. In my first 6 months, I was crying a lot. I mean, it was just feelings were pouring out. And a lot of times it showed in anger and disrespect. But anyways, it dropped me to my knees. And I remember thinking, just saying, God, what is it that you want me to do? I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to think and feel the way I have been feeling all my life, which was scared. a scared little boy who happens to be 6'1", but inside he's scared as fuck. I don't want to feel. I don't want to feel fear anymore. I don't want to be scared. And I don't. And I know that I don't want to drink. You know, help me with this. Help me with this. And something in my voice just said, "Keep going to AA. Just keep going to AA." Once that happened, like a weight was lifted. It just like it was gone. The tears stopped. I stood up, and the first thought that came to my head was, everything is going to be okay. You're going to be all right. Just got to keep doing this. And of course, I did what I was, what it's like at that moment, I made an agreement with God that I was going to keep going to AA. What I didn't know at the time, that I was going to fall in love with my life in Alcoholics Anonymous, that I was going to start reading the book, because I'm not a reader by all means. My comprehension is not very well. I can't read. I fall asleep. I start daydreaming. My head goes somewhere else. And I started reading this book with that sponsor, and I started reading and reading. And then I got this other sponsor a year later, because this one was going to go to Arizona. And then I got this new sponsor for all the wrong reasons. And I didn't know that he was a big book Nazi sponsor. And I don't know, that's what they call him, big book Nazi sponsor. And I didn't know that's what he was. And he took me through the 12 steps in the big book and the 12 and 12 and traditions. And boom, I got hooked. I got hooked big time, because it's crazy how this book, big book, was written, published in 1939. And I can relate so much to it in 2012, in 2013, in 2014. Even till today, I'm finding out way more things than I ever have. And that's what happened. But it all started because an old timer, Bob Z, started talking about emotions, feelings, resentment. If it wasn't for him, I honestly don't know if I would have kept coming back to the meetings, because again, I could not relate to that. And if you really want to stop, and you really mean it, but you can't stay stopped, that's one. The other one is, if you want to control it, go ahead and control it. Go to the bar, see if you can have one or two, and stop abruptly. Go straight home, and you're done. You might do it once, you might do it twice, but some point between 3 and 100, you're not going to do it if you be the real alcoholic. So once he started talking about that part, the unmanageability, that's what hooked me, and that's what got me, into this journey that I'm in now. Now it's been 14 years. Again, my sobriety date is September 25th, 2011. Man, what a journey. Trust me, it has been a lot of ups and downs. I mean, maybe that could be my niche or my thing, just sharing about recovery. And that you don't have to live this way. Stone cold sober, you don't have to be miserable. Stone cold sober, you don't have to be so angry. You don't have to have road rage. You don't have to be offended. You don't have to be scared of what you think other people think about you or me. Because the one connection for sure is God. God has to, for me, AA connected me to God, and God is first. Being of service, helping other people is second, and I'm just third. Putting my wants aside, I want this, I want that, I want her. Putting that aside, and how can I help you? And because I started helping other people, this miracle happened. that I started getting to know God closer and personal, and our relationship got better and bigger. And because of that, it was because I was helping other people. But because of that, also what ended up, and it's still happening. It doesn't end, but it is happening. Is that I started to value myself more and more. I still have doubts, but when I have doubts, it's because I haven't prayed and I don't have faith, and I forget where I come from. But for the most part, I believe I'm not the same thinking person that I was when I got here. My thinking definitely has changed for the best. Negative thinking has turned into positive thinking. Jesus, I'm doing a podcast right now. That is fear. And a lot of it has to, and the reason I don't do it, because a lot of it has to do with I am scared of what people are going to think about me. I'm not a mind reader and I don't know what people are going to think, but it's not what you think, is what I think. This distorted mind, this fearful mind, what I'm going to think, you think about me. And it has stopped me from doing a lot of things, you know. Today, for example, before I forget, and I'm actually running out of time, I was on my way to work, listening to different podcasts, listening to just different stuff, and I'm in my head, and I'm feeling down. You know, I can feel the weight. And am I calling anyone? No, of course not. But once I start feeling that doubt, once I start feeling that fear, I'm listening to this podcast, and the phone rings. And here's a beautiful thing about it, okay? The phone rings and I see who it was, and I just went, I picked up the phone and I said, "Thank you, God. Thank you for calling me." Not that she's not God, but thank you. I don't want to say her name, break her anonymity, but as of today, 4/20, she has 22 days. So she knows who she is. She has 22 days. And she starts laughing. And she said, "What happened?" He goes, "Man, was I in my head? God sent you my way to get me out of my head." Because the minute she called and the minute I answered, I was in the present. I was in the moment. And she is going through some stuff. You know, I filled her in a little bit, but I was like, "What's going on with you? What's going on with you? You know, let's talk about what's going on with you. You got 22 days. Wow, good for you." And she is transforming right now. She's in this. She's on fire, and just like that, those thoughts and feelings of not being worthy of anything, inadequacy. I have a very hard time pronouncing words. Went away because she called, you know, and I like to believe God does for me what I could not do for myself. I could not call someone because I was getting stuck in my head, but she called me and broke me out of that darkness that I was easily and subtly, powerfully, blindly was walking right into it. And we had like an hour conversation. It was a great conversation. I'm proud of her. She's doing good. You know, I keep telling her, reminding her for her to keep that fire, not to lose that desperation that she has right now. So, and just like that, I'm making this podcast. I was doubting myself not to make it. I was scared of making it. And after that conversation, I said, "You know what? I'm going to make this podcast. Even if it's just for me. And hopefully some people hear it. And if anybody there is having trouble, remember, you don't have to go through prison. A lot of us do. Not us. A lot of people do have to go through that to get to their rock bottom. But if you're sick and tired of thinking the way you've been thinking, and if you think that life isn't going the way you want it to be going, you're not alone. Call someone, talk to someone. It's very important to talk to someone. Of course, like I just said, I ended up not calling someone, but someone did call me. But it's very, very important to call someone. You may think that they don't understand. However, even if they don't understand, the thing is that that poison that's in your head, in your heart, that bad juju, the black spirit, the evil spirit, or whatever it is, just a bad part. At least when you share it with somebody, you're giving it to the universe, and you're taking away the power that it has, because it does have a lot of power. If you have a problem, check out a meeting. Just check it out. Be open minded about it, and let me know what you guys think. Um, if you listen to this all the way through, thank you very much. I truly do appreciate that. And thank you, because you're actually part of my dream. You're part of a goal that I'm trying to reach and that I'm trying to live by today, And I want to thank you if you did stick around to the end. I'll see you about tomorrow night. I was thinking of doing instead of writing some journal about my journey, maybe I could do some videos about it. Of course, I'm going to try to upload it on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and stuff like that. So if you can't even, doesn't matter if you look at me, as long as you can hear me. Let me know what you guys think, all right? Again, this is Johnny, and I'm very grateful, and it's only by the grace of God that I am here enjoying life and getting blessings on top of blessings. And it's not always like that, but guess what? I don't have to run like I used to anymore. I don't have to run to the bottle. I don't have to run to the pipe. I don't have to run to smoke. I have friends that I can call. I got people that will hear me out, help me look at things in a different way, because when I'm caught up in my feelings, I cannot see the truth. I can't see the truth when I'm all caught up in this fucking toxic brain that got me here. That's the thing that people, well, you might understand it, but I know it started making sense for me, is that I'm trying to fix something that was created up here. And I'm trying to use the same thinking, the same logic to get me out of another jam, instead of relying on God, instead of relying and calling someone, instead of doing that. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If I didn't make any sense, let me know. If I made sense, let me know. Drop a comment, hit me up. All right. Again, my name is Johnny, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.